Welcome to the Brightside Podcast, where this week we're getting creative with the art episode. And now looking into this, we found there are 12 different definitions of art in the Oxford Dictionary, so we're going to be quite loose with the definition of art. And I'm joined today by Matthew. His art qualifications, when I asked for them, he mentioned he's very confident at drawing stickmen. Have you got anything to add to that, Matthew?
To be honest, I don't think I ever said confident.
No, you didn't actually.
And also with me this week is Millie, who can actually do real art, as we can see behind her.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. I can throw some paint at a page and hope for the best. And this week we're joined by some very artsy guests. Would you like to introduce yourselves? And we've asked everyone to bring in an artist they find inspirational. So take it away, Shaun.
Hello, I'm Shaun, and I'm not sure it's my favourite artist, but the one I want to talk about today is William Hogarth, 18th century painter and illustrator, famous for depictions of London life, Gin Lane and Beer Street and stuff. But the one that really got me onto him was a series of 12 illustrations called Industry and Idleness, which shows the story of two apprentices in London, one who follows a good moral path and the other one who follows a bad path. And it shows you their parallel lives. And that's when I really became interested.
My name is Vanessa, and I'm cheating because I have two artists, but one of them is more of a joke and something that I find reflects my mood in this current lockdown period. So my real artist is Monet, because I've been doing quite a lot of gardening, and he was really quite at the forefront of a new style of art, Impressionism, and the use of light is just unlike anything anyone had ever really seen before. And it's interesting how he was really equal parts a painter and a gardener. But my second artist is called Maurizio Catalan, and I don't know if anyone knows of him, but he's famous at the moment for starting something called the banana movement. So he sellotaped a banana using a single piece of duct tape at one of these Miami art conferences, and it's called Comedian, this piece of artwork, and it really encapsulates my mood, so I thought I'd share it with you all.
Oh, that's excellent. Ellie, do you want to introduce yours?
Hi, I'm Ellie, and I've picked as an artist who inspires me Yayoi Kusama. She's 94 now, but she's an artist from Japan, and I just find her really inspiring because she used to do a lot of nudity and cover taboo topics in her culture, like homosexuality, and she was shunned by her family for that. And as she's gotten older, she's moved on to installations and sculptures that basically just use circles, and it's a lot of it comes from how she views the world, because she struggled with schizophrenia and OCD, so she's kind of letting out those intrusive thoughts, but she decided to share that and to make it something that reflects what she can put out into the world because of what she goes through. And I think that's really inspiring, and she's still at it at 94, so great.
Oh, that's amazing. I still want to be doing art like that in my 90s.
You can they released a sort of virtual experience of one of her installations. If you go to it in real life, it's in Japan. You're just surrounded by circles and mirrors of circles and mirrors. But they released a virtual experience of that. We found it online, and it's free now.
Perfect thing to do while you're stuck inside. I love how kind of like your artist, art's become a way to push boundaries, hasn't it? In terms of what's accepted in our culture.
Well, I'm not sure about pushing the boundaries of art, but pushing the boundaries of your question as to our favourite artist. My favourite artist may not fall under your typical definition of what art is, but I'd like to talk about Xabi Alonso, who was a professional footballer, and anyone who's seen Xabi Alonso strike a football could only describe that as art.
You're really taking our kind of loose definition of art to the extreme here.
65-yard pass by Xabi Alonso, it has to be art. There's no other way to describe it.
While you guys were talking, I've just been Googling your artists. And William Hogarth, he had a lot of people in his pictures, didn't he? Just the amount of effort it takes me to draw one person, let alone 20.
There's so many hidden things in all of the pictures. If you can stare at them for ages, and you notice little icons and symbols which mean something. It's all related and like a mystery to solve in some of them.
Something from paintings of this era I've always wanted to master is how they draw clothes so well. This time you always see pictures of people with really like long flowing dresses and getting the way they capture the light off the material really well.
Yeah, that was a nice thing about the realism, really, because nowadays lots of it's sort of what you're thinking and how the painting makes you feel, while in the past that detail really was key. And not only with paintings, but I mean with sculptors like Leonardo da Vinci or people like that, the way that they'd sculpt cloth falling on a person, I just find absolutely awe-inspiring.
And oh yeah, tell me a bit more about the banana one, Vanessa, because
So we go from amazing cloth to banana on a wall.
I was going to say we've got all sides of the spectrum.
Yes, that's the interesting thing about art. It can mean a lot of things, and modern art especially. There's almost this ludicrousy to it, where you can put a dot on a page and sell it for thousands of dollars. Like this artwork that I was talking about called Comedian. It was on sale for $120,000 in Miami, and it sold, and someone has a very nice banana with a piece of duct tape on it rotting in some corner of their room, probably.
I was going to say, it's not a worthwhile investment, is it? Because that's only going to decrease in value.
Really. Yes.
I mean, it says something about the impermanence of all of our lives. So it's really more artistic as time goes on.
I'm not sure about all the meaning behind this painting.
all beauty is fleeting and temporary. I think that's what your banana means.
Most likely the artist was taking the title of the painting more seriously, as in comedian, as in whoever buys this, I've really, done one over on. You'd be an absolute idiot, really. I'm not sure if that's what he meant. Did you see that in the news recently? Some art critic smashed like £15,000 worth of paintings by mistake with a Coke can. And then was like, oh, you should just leave it here because it demonstrates the progress and the journey of the art, because he didn't want to pay for it.
What did he smash? Was it made of glass or?
Yes, it was some kind of modern painting. I didn't really look at it because all I saw was smashed things on the floor. I don't know what it looked like beforehand.
Did it make the art better?
Potentially.
I mean, it's the sort of excuse that could only really work with an art gallery. Like if you break something at Tesco's, they're not gonna take, oh, this was the journey of that cup.
What was the name of your artist again, Ellie?
It's Yayoi Kusama, so it's yay as in why can't I spell Y-A-Y and then oi as in oi.
I found it. It came up. Wow, I fully recommend everyone Google these pictures by Yayoi Kusama because they're amazing. They're so brightly coloured and so joyful. You say she has schizophrenia, and that was a lot of her inspiration for doing her art, because it just shows, doesn't it, how something quite painful can be turned into something beautiful, which I'm going to use as a segue to my favourite artist, who was Vincent van Gogh, or Van Gogh, however you want to pronounce it. And I know he's a very common one for a lot of people, but I just find his artwork incredible. And I went to Amsterdam and went round the Van Gogh Museum there. And if anyone's seen it before, I'm not sure, there's a really good film called Loving Vincent, which came out about, I think, a year or two ago. And it's a film about Vincent van Gogh, but it's entirely animated in the art style of a Van Gogh painting. It's really good. I recommend you watch it. It's kind of about the lead up to his death and accounts from people who knew him. It would be incredible if he could see what had come from his art life, since he was so underappreciated during his actual career.
Yes. Didn't he only sell like one painting in his whole career while he was alive or something?
Yes, I'd hold on to that knowledge for later.
Oh, right.
You really might have to cut some of this out.
No, I'm keeping this in.
Vincent van Gogh is kind of the most beloved artist in that he's inspired, like, there's songs about him, there's films about him. There's a Doctor Who episode about him, which are really good. He's very beloved because of how his experience with depression and the fact that he still went on to be the biggest artist of all time, even though he didn't know that. And it's heartbreaking, but it's also very hopeful for us all.
It's humbling.
Yeah,
You know?
even though he had everyone around him telling him he was bad at painting, it didn't stop him because he was just doing what he loved. And I think something else that's really inspiring is that he didn't even start painting till he was about 27, 28.
What
Even
you're
at our
saying,
age.
Millie, is there's more time for me to become a famous artist.
Absolutely, like, don't limit yourself to stickmen.
We've
Yeah.
spoken about all the other artists, but I just wanted to talk about, Vanessa, your Monet. He was the guy who did
yes.
the water lily pond, wasn't he?
He was that guy indeed, yes.
Because
Ooh,
he's one of the
gorgeous.
few artists that I remember, and I think we studied him in primary school. We looked at that painting a bit for our art class, and that was the last
did
time
you?
I ever tried to paint anything.
Wait, because it put you off, or because it was the end of your art class?
It was the end of my art class, I think, and it was the end of the road for
Okay, phew.
me and producing my own art.
Apart from the stick figures. Hey, maybe he inspired some variation of light in the tones of your stick men. You never know.
He's also another disabled artist because he has cataracts. Well, he developed cataracts over time, and that's why his art became a bit more blurred, but definitely inspired his use of colour.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Turning
there's
things around
actually
and making them beautiful.
There's a really interesting story about his water lilies, actually, because he started off with just drawing a separate part of his garden, which was just plants and flowers and outside in nature. And he always wanted to have a pond and make some kind of pond with lilies and the reflections, and that was really his passion. But those paintings actually came a bit later in his career, because it took him about, I think it was 5 years battling with planning permission in France in order to make this water garden of his, and in the way that he wanted to. And he diverted a stream in order to come into this part of his garden and make this pond. And he was having absolute battle with the authorities. Can you believe that somebody like that could have never made any of his beautiful artworks if
The damn council was
horrible...
always the damn council was always standing in the way of art.
Exactly.
With that, I think we might move on to our next segment of the podcast, which is the inspirational news stories, the inspiration station. So the idea is that each week we'll talk about some kind of upbeat or inspirational news stories that have been occurring to do with our topic. I think art is probably the easiest one to explore, because with everyone staying at home at the moment, there's been a huge outpouring of just creativity and art, and people doing the things that they've not been able to before because of work or other responsibilities, but now they can just really let themselves go and give something new a try. An example of something inspiring I found was a new Banksy artwork has appeared at Southampton General Hospital, and it's a really lovely picture. It's a large monochrome painting of a little boy kneeling by a waste paper basket, and he's discarded his old model figures like Spider-Man, Batman, and instead he's holding an NHS nurse who's wearing an apron with the Red Cross emblem, and she's in a kind of superhero pose. I think in the autumn it's going to be auctioned off to raise money for the NHS. So I just thought that was a lovely thing. Have you guys brought in any you'd like to share?
Well, following on from that, I have a couple of other COVID-inspired art stories that I'd like to share. Specifically, I have a question for Ellie, because I've heard about something happening in Wakefield.
I have not.
I didn't know that things happened in Wakefield.
It's quite a small thing, but it caught my eye and I thought it was really sweet. I'm sure that everybody knows who's listening to the podcast that throughout this period, children have been drawing rainbows and celebrating the NHS through art in that way, and putting it in their windows and outside their houses. And in Wakefield, one family took it to the next level. They painted every single brick of their house a different shade of colours in order to turn their entire house and their fence into a massive rainbow for the NHS. And this happened in Wakefield, and I was wondering, Ellie, if you'd seen said house.
Yeah. I haven't. I'm quite disappointed. I feel like my voice has gone more Yorkshire now we're talking about Wakefield. Yeah, I mean, I've seen there's a lovely young lady on my street that's been doing lots of rainbows for everyone up the street, but she's actually not got round to ours yet, so I'm quite offended.
So lots of rainbows. We've had quite a few down here that are really quite artsy, actually. I mean, I hope kids drew them, otherwise I'll start feeling bad about myself. Yeah, and something funny that came out of this article I read was the parents said, oh, it was an idea to help the kids get some fresh air, you know, an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. If that's the extent you have to go to these days to try and force kids to get fresh air, you can paint the entire house. It's quite a feat, isn't it?
Oh, it just really brightens my day when you're walking on the street and you see so much art in the windows now. And you can see it as well with your friends, can't you? I know so many people who've started blogs, they've started their own kind of art accounts, podcasts. This probably wouldn't have been happening if I wasn't searching for something to fill some more of my time in lockdown. And I think this is the biggest bright side we found over the course of this podcast, is it's given people just so much more time with their families and to do art together. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else, or shall I move on to the next part?
Yeah, I have two. One of them is, a lot of people have been doing this. There's been a lot of photography of like everyday life come from being in lockdown, because we're surrounded by our everyday life and we don't have anything else to distract us with. But I really love this one she's called Caroline White, and I'm just reading it off the Metro, but she took pictures through people's windows, and I just think they're really lovely.
That's a tad creepy though. No? Anyone else?
I think they know. I think
they're like consent first.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention they gave consent for
Oh,
this to happen.
They did. They are posing for the pictures, and some of them are doing yoga, some of them are just chilling.
I was just thinking that it was really unfair that when I do it, I get arrested, but you know, she gets all this news press.
Imagine if we all had pictures taken of us through our windows last night. What would the scene be?
Oh, just me on the sofa for most of the day.
Good for you, Millie. Don't let the haters stop you.
Yeah. Did you have another one, Ellie?
I did. It's not inspiring because it shouldn't be happening in the first place, but it's inspired protest where protest should be happening. And there's been a lot of art in response to George Floyd's death. So one of them being Nicholas Smith, and just like portraits of him. There's even the quote, "I can breathe now," because of his final words being, "I can't breathe." And I mean, it's great that it's inspired so much protest, but obviously it would be better if he was still alive and if police brutality wasn't a thing. But yeah, I just thought I'd share that as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important to talk about. And the outpour of art in response to this has been, I mean, some of it like almost moved me to tears. It's a lot of Instagram accounts I follow have done unique art for this. In the link to this, maybe we can include some places people can go to sign petitions.
I mean, a lot of people can't get out to protest because they're vulnerable to the virus or whatever. They're working more hours, so people are just trying to get his name and other people's names out and their faces out whatever way they can. This art is pushing those names out there and pushing the message of Black Lives Matter.
And yes, we'll include some links to petitions here, and I think there's also some places you can donate to. I'll look a bit more into that, and then we can include it at the end. Shall we move on to the...
Millie, can I say one more thing? Because I forgot it, and then
go for it.
Throw it in there. So just back to the Banksy, because lots of people are doing various murales and street art and everything. And just one I saw really caught my eye. I just thought it was hilarious. It was a little picture of Gollum on the side of a house, and he's extending his hand out towards a roll of toilet paper with the caption, "My precious." And I thought that was beautifully eloquent caption and describing our feelings during some shortages.
Yeah. Oh, I just love there's so much humorous art that's come out as well.
Yeah.
Isn't there?
Just wanted to throw that in.
I think that's one of the things I enjoy about Banksy's art, is that it's actually quite funny a lot of the time. it isn't just like a protest, it's also quite humorous too.
Oh, okay. So now let's move on to, in my personal opinion, the best part of the podcast, the quiz, which this time will take an artsy theme. So basically the way it works is you guys all make up one team and you'll be competing with the teams from the other podcast episodes. And with this in mind, have you had any thoughts about what team name you're going to use?
Come on, team.
I saw some great ideas in the group chat.
I can't remember.
Okay, so we had some suggestions last time we spoke. I think you mentioned the Art Attackers, and you also you also suggested Art You Gonna Pick a Name, and Vanessa's choice, which was Watch Them as They Tear Up Paintings and Fling Paint at Children.
That's a long name.
That's gotta be the winner.
No, that wasn't a name. That was a description.
That's
of what
our
art
slogan.
attackers are. Exactly. Come on, Millie.
Oh, so that's your bio.
I disagree. I think that should be the name.
And then we'll have to say it out in full every time we use it.
Before every question.
The Art Attackers.
That's a really cool... Ellie,
I
did you just
love
come up with that now? That's genius.
Was just blessed.
Okay, all agreed then. We're going with Ellie's name, the Art Attackers.
I think the discussion has to stop here. There can't be a better name than that.
Well done, Ellie. Well done. So you're going with the Art Attackers. And Matthew, do you want to kick it off with the first question?
Okay, so our first question is, what was the price of the most expensive piece of art ever sold at auction? If it helps, the artist was Leonardo da Vinci and the sale took place in 2017 at Christie's in New York. Was it A, 200 million, B, 350 million, or C, 450 million in US dollars?
C.
You sound quite confident in that one.
I actually wrote this question as part of a quiz I wrote a couple of weeks ago, but I can't remember the answer.
I
Okay,
didn't
I
realise
believe
there
you.
were choices, and I was like, come on, there's like infinite amounts of numbers.
It would be a little unfair to ask you to name the exact number that the painting cost. We tried to make the quiz at least somewhat possible.
I'm so happy I can get one question. Just by the way, the rest of this is all on YouTube. Like, I have zero general knowledge for paintings, but I just happen to know this one.
So you're going with C then? Yeah, that's correct.
Yay!
Yeah, it was sold at Christie's, and it was sold to a Saudi Arabian prince called Badir bin Abdullah on behalf of the Abu Dhabi Board of Culture and Tourism. It was supposed to be displayed in the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, but before it was unveiled, it was completely postponed indefinitely. So it still hasn't been displayed in Abu Dhabi for its original purpose.
They broke it.
Well,
That's just my prediction.
You wouldn't want to tell anyone, would you?
They spilled coffee on it, guys.
They accidentally used it as a coaster one day and then no one wanted to admit to it.
yeah, Da Vinci isn't the kind of artist that you can break his paintings and say, oh, I've really made it better.
Oh no. You would have the entire nation of Italy at your doorstep.
And Vanessa would be leading them.
I would be leading the march.
Didn't you say it was being stored on a yacht, Matthew?
Well, it's not currently known where its current location is, but more recently it's come out that someone has said that he's storing it on his private yacht in the Red Sea. He hasn't said anything about it, but it's apparently not even on a boat owned by the guy who owns the painting. Apparently it's on the boat owned by Mohammed bin Salman, who is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and also quite a rich guy in his own right.
Right. Let's move on to the next question. How long did it take Bob Ross to film a series of The Joy of Painting? A, 3 days, B, a week, or C, 2 weeks?
How long are they? Does anyone know?
They're half an hour long.
Okay.
Ooh.
How much art has he got in him in one filming day, I suppose? Would he be smashing them out, or would he only want to do one or two, take a break?
I don't know, guys. I'm not sure.
I think 3 might be rushing too much, and I can't remember the other options.
I feel like I want to say like a week.
A week seems plausible.
Should we go with that?
Yeah?
Final answer.
I've just realised I did get the answer for this, but I forgot to write it down. So,
Oh, the suspense.
so while you do that, I was just like, how long did it take Just give me 1 second and talk amongst yourselves.
Let's talk about the marvel that is Bob Ross and his mountains and trees.
I'd just like to point out, guys, that you've got enough time to look it up and cheat and get the right answer.
No, it's set
Oh
in
my
stone
gosh,
now.
let's do it!
That's what I was thinking.
Quick!
You might find it before I do.
Okay, I'm on Wikipedia.
More than 400 episodes.
When I was doing my GCSEs, I used to get really stressed and couldn't sleep at night. And so I've never actually watched his show, but I used to play it in the background so that I could listen to his calming voice and it helped me fall asleep.
So the answer that I found is none of the answers you said.
Really? I swear, we're 5 episodes in. This is the first time this has happened.
It says 2 days.
2 days.
Well, I mean, they were definitely wrong because they said 3 days was too short.
I'm sorry. I think if you'd gone for the lowest one. A little bit about Bob Ross. He painted while serving in the military and sold paintings of the Alaskan landscape to tourists. And that's when he first discovered his love of art. And then The Joy of Painting, his series, premiered in 1983 on PBS and ran for 11 years. Matthew, do you want to move on to the next question?
Moving on to the next question, which I know for a certain has answers that at least one of them is correct. Or maybe it isn't.
Woo!
Or maybe it's the trick question. Which of the following sporting events included a simultaneous competition for artists? Was it A, Wimbledon, B, the Olympics, or C, the Royal Ascot?
I feel like that's definitely all of it. I feel like the Olympics would.
Would they all have had 3 separate simultaneous artist competitions? It seems a bit unlikely to me. But...
I feel like Royal Ascot would have.
So by simultaneous, I mean the art competition happened at the same time as the main event.
Oh, I see. Which Olympics?
What do you mean, which Olympics? Any of the Olympics.
Have
Well, they happen every
heard?
4 years. I mean,
Okay.
Wimbledon happens every year too.
Have them,
An art
have them-
competition every year?
Has had it at some point in time.
Have you guys ever heard of an art competition in the Olympics?
No,
I haven't. I feel like it would have been something more advertised.
but it could have been
Wimbledon.
100 years ago.
Oh, true.
Okay, so I'm going to push you for an answer. Have you?
I'm happy to go with all of them. There's been
Yeah.
plenty of opportunity over the hundreds of years.
Okay, so that's
Let's
your
do
final answer? You're happy
Yes.
with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so unfortunately you're wrong. It's
Oh,
only
no.
the Olympics.
Oh well.
It was just the Olympics that had an art competition between 1912 and 1948. It came from the founder of the Olympics was interested in promoting the fact that sport was also a form of art. And so he thought it would be normal for a sports competition to have art competitions side by side. So they had categories for architecture, literature, music, painting and sculpture. They abandoned it in 1954 because they decided that artists were considered to be professionals, but Olympic athletes should only be amateurs. The oldest person to ever win an Olympic medal was John Copley, who won a silver medal for painting and engraving at the age of 73. I don't think it's likely that anyone's going to beat that record anytime soon.
Matthew,
Ageism.
Yeah.
I would like to educate you on something that I've just found.
Ooh, of course.
Apparently, in 2020, Royal Ascot did a schools art competition. Therefore, we have
Wait,
Hold on a
wait.
sec. Did they
Did it
win
have-
the
did it-
medal? Does the medal look the same as the one you'd win if you won the actual
Okay.
Ascot?
Hold on,
We can move on.
just give me 2 minutes. I'm going to look up this art competition.
I think me and Matthew are unnecessarily defensive this episode after the Bob Ross fiasco.
What happened?
I'm not convinced that my question is wrong. I think it's fine.
Right, I'll move on to the next question. What type of art movement was Kandinsky regarded as heavily influencing or creating? And I'll say his name again, Kandinsky. Was it A, abstract art, B, realist art, C, impressionism?
It's definitely not realist. I think it's abstract because he's like shapy.
Yeah, he's pretty modern, I think, for impressionism. So
Shapes all over the place.
Were you going with abstract?
I am leaning towards abstract.
Okay, let's go for it, Ellie. You were right on the Olympics.
Ooh, I'm scared.
Well, abstract is the right answer.
Yay!
Nice one. Yeah, so his full name is incredibly difficult to pronounce. I'm going to give it a go anyway. Wasily Kandinsky was a Russian painter and an art theorist. So he was generally credited with being a pioneer of abstract art, and he created a treatise in 1910 which was called Concerning the Spiritual in Art. He made famous the belief that abstract colours and forms can be used to express the inner life of the artist. Lots of abstract shape. I'm not sure from just looking at these pictures I could understand what his inner self was. Matthew, do you want to move on to the next question? And I think you guys might know this pretty quickly.
Okay, moving on to the next question. How many paintings did Vincent van Gogh sell during his lifetime? Was it 12?
1! Sorry.
How many paintings did Vincent van Gogh sell during his lifetime? Was it 12, 86, or 1?
I think it was 1.
Let's go with 1.
So you're confident with 1? Is that your final answer?
Yeah, it was definitely a small amount, so we'll go with 1.
Okay, well, I'm happy to tell you that's the correct answer.
Yay!
The painting he sold during his lifetime was the Red Vineyard et al., which you can see at a museum in Moscow. The rest of his 900 or so paintings only became famous after his death. I think it demonstrates quite nicely the fact that artists are always highly thought of after their death and they become a lot more valuable. I think partly this is because if there's a certain amount of demand for a certain painter, while they're still alive, you could just wait for them to produce more art. Once they've died, you have to make sure you buy it off of someone who already owns it. So there's now a very limited supply, and the seller knows that as well. So I think that's what drives up price of dead artists.
This does raise some questions, as in, did he have a part-time job to pay for all his artwork?
I think he lived quite a lot from donations from his brother. Theo sent him quite a lot of money, which was why they had a very close relationship.
Okay, that makes more sense now.
Yeah, because art supplies weren't cheap. Because back then, I think you still...
No, they're not at all. I mean, even now, especially if you're doing oil, if you're making 900 odd paintings and not selling any of them, I mean, you've got to have some kind of very charitable income somehow.
Yeah. So the answer is have a rich sibling. So on to the next question. Who illustrated Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll? Was it A, Beatrix Potter, B, John Tenniel, or C, Charles N. Schulz? And I should mention a lot of people have illustrated these books over the years, but we're looking for who was the first person to do it with the first edition.
I feel like it's John Tenniel.
It is, yeah.
Yes, and Beatrix Potter definitely knows, so...
Yes, well, you're absolutely right. The first edition was illustrated by John Tenniel. It was published in 1865, and he has become the best-known illustrator of the Alice in Wonderland series. And if you look at his original etchings, there's the Mad Hatter Tea Party that's so iconic now. And you're right, Shaun. Charles Schulz, he was an American cartoonist, and he created the comic strip Peanuts, which I believe is that Charlie Brown? Snoopy!
And Charlie Brown.
And Beatrix Potter, she did actually do a lot of drawings of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland when she was teaching herself how to draw, which is very sweet. And eventually that inspired her to become one of the most famous illustrators of all time. She was well known for her illustration before she even began starting the Peter Rabbit books.
They just make you feel very British and homely.
I have a Jemima Puddle Duck that my grandma made before I was born. It used to be my sister's.
Just lovely.
So the next question, and this one is almost completely aimed at you, Shaun. So the next question is, what was the pen name of Mary Ann Evans, who is best known for a work published in 1871 called Middlemarch? Was it A, Cura Bell, B, Robert Galbraith, or C, James Tiptree Jr.?
Oh dear. I'm not sure I know this, actually.
It might be a man's name.
It's a bit, well, Mrs. Gaskill wrote Middlemarch, but that wasn't the name it was published under at the time, which is one of these. It's not Cara Bell, because that's one of the Brontes used that as their pen name. And Robert Galbraith is J.K. Rowling, so it must be C.
Okay, so is that your final answer?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so unfortunately you've been tripped up by the trick question. None of them were correct.
Oh no!
I'm sorry.
Oh,
She wrote under the pen name George Eliot.
oh,
Oh, are you kidding me?
question. What's this George Eliot?
Oh.
Well, you were completely right about the first two, though. The first one was Charlotte Bronte, and the second one was J.K. Rowling.
I had no idea George Eliot was a woman. I always just heard the name. No one ever told me, so I just assumed it was a man.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the point.
I just
It worked really
Googled.
well. Do you know much about like pen names and?
I don't know much. None of the female authors are ones I've really read a lot of, actually. So
Maybe you did, and it was just under a different name, and you don't know.
maybe, yeah.
One interesting thing about the Bronte sisters' pen names was they all took pen names that had the same initials. All of their names were supposed to line up, so they could sort of kind of keep their identity through that.
Ah, so it was in code. Ooh, and moving on to the next question. This is a very interesting one. What was unusual about Jean-Dominique Bauby's novel, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly? A, he wrote it when he was only 6 years old. B, he wrote it by blinking his eyes. Or C, it predicted the sinking of the Titanic.
I think it's about someone with a disability. Is the only inkling I've got. So it might make sense that the author wrote it with blinking. And I'm
If you think it's
reasonably sure
quite
it's
modern, then
after the Titanic. I think so.
Should we go for B?
Without a great deal of confidence.
no, come on, with plenty of confidence.
It's absolutely B. It's the correct answer.
And you're right. The confidence paid off. This is an amazing story. Jean-Dominique
How did
Bauby.
he write that?
Well, he suffered a massive stroke, which left him with something called locked-in syndrome.
I
Where,
know what that is.
yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about it? You're a medic.
Well, basically, locked-in syndrome is where you have a problem in your there's a little bit of your brain that's called your midbrain, and it stops the signals transmitting down to your body. So you can only really like move your eyes, but you're fully conscious and your brain's perfectly working, but you're completely paralyzed. So it's like you're locked into your body. It's really scary.
Yeah, it's an awful thing to happen. But yeah, he awoke 20 days after his stroke, and he was, mentally aware of his surroundings, but completely paralyzed. And the entire book was written by him blinking, and it took 10 months, 4 hours a day. And he had to use a scanning assisted transcriber. So he used the alphabet, and basically the number of times he blinked, that letter would come up, and it was like frequency ordered. So E is the most common letter. So blink once for E, etc. And the whole book took about 200,000 blinks. And the average word took 2 minutes, just for some perspective. And the book just chronicles the everyday events of a person with locked-in syndrome, and it's just so unique. It talks about him playing at the beach with his family, meeting visitors who come to the hospital. Yeah, just an incredible achievement.
You know why it's called The Driving Bell and the Butterfly?
I'm not sure exactly. It might have some kind of symbolic meaning.
Yeah, let's all read it. That's our homework.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. What is the best-selling novel of all time? Was it A, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, B, Don Quixote, or C, Moby Dick?
I hope it's not Moby Dick, because it doesn't deserve that.
Do you not like that book?
No, I really don't.
I feel like it is Harry Potter.
What was I don't.
Of all time.
Yes, looking across the world. Because this is quite difficult to measure, there are multiple lists that say different things, but the top one, we have the answer here, is the one that comes out most regularly as being the best-selling novel of all time. And we're not including the Bible.
Yeah, it's not including books like the Bible or the Quran or Chairman Mao's Little Red Book, because those are even more difficult to keep track of, because they're often given away for free. There's no record of them being sold, and also they're not novels.
What was the middle option?
Option B was Don Quixote.
I think we should go for that.
B. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, are we actually going for it?
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
been
so
around a long time.
I mean, I'm
hasn't it?
hoping it's not Harry Potter, and I don't think it's Moby Dick at all. So, yeah, let's do it.
So yes, you're correct. It is Don Quixote. It's reportedly sold 500 million copies since it was published in 1605. Well, it was published in two parts, in 1605 and 1615, but it has been called the most important work of the Spanish age.
I can't believe that's the best-selling book of all time, because everyone I talk to about it has never heard of it.
I think it was turned into a play that starred David Tennant in London.
Maybe
But
I should know about it then.
That's the only thing I think I've heard about it. I suppose it makes sense given that it's a Spanish novel, and most of the people you know will probably be English.
I think I might just be quite uncultured.
No, you're not, Millie.
But just for some perspective as well, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone sold 107 million copies. That's almost a figth of how much Don Quixote has sold.
I was going to say, to be fair, Don Quixote had over 400 years.
We'll give them some more time. And it would be interesting to see in 100 or even 500 years what the best-selling book of all time is then, because it will probably all look very different.
I doubt it will be Harry Potter, but I could be wrong.
Depends how good we are at passing it on to the next generation.
Yes.
Let's move on to the next question. This is one of our really classiest questions. Now, it's quite intellectual, and I don't want you to feel bad or judge yourselves too much if you don't get this one. So which of these famous painters is not a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle? Is it A, Michelangelo, B, Donatello, or C, Lorenzo?
C, right?
Michelangelo
is, and Leonardo definitely is as well.
Was he the red one?
It's been a very long time.
I think it's all of them.
Oh, we've already had that question though.
Okay.
There's Raphael as well, and the fourth one.
I thought Donatello was... Wait, was Donatello one of the options?
Wait, yes. So then it must be the last one, because that's all of them. We did it! C!
Yes, you've done it. C is the only one that isn't a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I'm not sure why. If anyone can explain it to me, feel free. But for some reason, they're named after 4 Renaissance artists.
It's not just the turtles that are named after Renaissance artists, because the rat is called Raphael. Wait, no, he's not called Raphael. He's called... Wait, what's the rat? The rat is named after a sculptor as well.
Let's search it.
I was going to say, I've just got a team of researchers. I'm ready.
Oh, actually, I was wrong. I don't think he is named after an artist.
Unless Splinter is an artist.
Well, no, that could be an artist.
He just wasn't trusted for any woodwork sculptures. Yes, so it's Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Donatello.
Oh, now I feel like I'm an idiot.
Do you want to move on to the next one, Matthew?
Oh, I don't know. What was interesting about the artwork Love is in the Bin by Banksy? Was it A, it was almost entirely blank, B, he destroyed it, or C, he tried to buy at auction with counterfeit money?
He did destroy one of his artworks.
What was the name of this one?
Love is in the Bin.
Okay, that would make sense to destroy something like that.
Yeah.
And, is it the shredder? Is this the shredder one? Yeah, the shreddings go in the bin.
Yeah, because it was the one with the balloon with the heart, and that's like Love is in the air, and then it'd be like Love is in the bin.
Oh, I love the balloon.
I destroyed
it. I actually went on a Banksy street art tour in Bristol, so yeah.
I went to his exhibit Dismaland in Weston-super-Mare.
Oh,
I really wanted to go to Dismaland.
He also has a significant amount of art in East London. So I did a sort of like one of those art tours. One of them, though, which was my favourite, which was a big sign that said, I'm sorry, but the lifestyle you ordered is out of stock, was eventually destroyed by the council and then replaced with an advertising board, which I thought made his point even more.
Well, the one that I liked most in Bristol was he drew a massive big plug hole right next to the council buildings with somebody pulling the plug on them, basically. they destroyed it repeatedly, and he kept putting it back.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so bringing this back to the question.
Sorry.
Have you got a final answer?
Are we going for he destroyed it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's correct. He did destroy it. This was the piece of art that sold at auction for around £1 million. And as soon as it was sold, it started shredding the painting. And so 2/3 of it was completely chopped up by the end. But the guy who bought it was quite pleased that it was destroyed. He said it made it even more valuable, and he was very happy that he'd been part of the art.
I mean, actually, yeah, it does, which kind of destroys the point, because...
But what was also interesting about this was he originally sold this painting in 2006, and then he waited until 2017 to destroy it. So he'd been waiting for a long time to finally shred this piece of art.
Okay, so smoothly moving on to the next question. When was Michelangelo's painting of the Sistine Chapel ceiling completed? Was it A, 1462, B, 1512, or C, 1612?
I'd say B.
Yeah.
That's more Renaissance, isn't it?
Now, the others are too early and too late, I guess, aren't they?
I have absolutely no idea. Honestly, what you guys said.
Okay, so you're going for B, 1512, and that's the right answer.
Yay! See what happens when you listen to me, guys.
That was the best yay I've ever heard.
Oh, I love that. The Sistine Chapel is one of the most famously painted interior spaces in the world, and virtually all the fame comes from the ceiling. And something I found very interesting about this was that actually Michelangelo was hired to do it because Michelangelo was like predominantly a sculptor, but he wasn't like as highly esteemed for his painting. So some people think that actually two of his artistic rivals, Raphael and the architect Bramante, kind of recommended him, hoping that he'd fall flat because he was more accustomed to sculpting than painting.
Literally fall flat.
Literally. They just completely proved them wrong and made one of the biggest masterpieces in Western art. So
It is. It's beautiful. Who's seen it?
I haven't. I'd love to.
I've been very close, but there was a very long queue and we gave up.
Oh, no. Yes, it's always completely packed.
Can we do a team trip?
Yes.
Can we get funding for
That's
this?
our prize if we win this series, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on to the next question. What happened to the Mona Lisa in 1911? Was it A, repaired? Was it B, stolen? Or was it C, vandalised?
I think it was stolen.
Should we go with stolen?
I feel like if it was vandalised, we'd be able to see it, wouldn't we?
I've never heard of it being vandalised or repaired, but it has definitely been stolen, at least once.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good, you're correct. It was stolen in 1911. Hurrah.
Go team!
Yay.
Wait, what was our team name again? Go
Was it
team!
Art Attackers?
Insert name here. Oh yes, Art
Art
Attackers.
Attackers.
But yeah, it was really interesting because in 1911, 3 men stole the Mona Lisa from the Louvre by hiding in a closet and then getting out in the dead of night and taking the painting and the frame and all the protective glass off the wall and taking it to a station. But what's quite interesting is that the Mona Lisa wasn't that widely known in the art world before then. This was really what put the Mona Lisa on the map, because kind of overnight there were all these news reports saying like priceless masterpiece stolen. Like this heist became a national scandal pretty much.
That's amazing.
And it brought so many more people to the Louvre afterwards, so it was kind of the best publicity they could have had. Eventually it was returned to them because obviously once something becomes that famous, it's impossible to sell it on.
We could have gone for that smaller painting right next to it and made a fortune.
Well, no, it was one of the smaller paintings when it was stolen. Like, no one thought they'd care about it. That's probably why they picked it. Because obviously it's a piece of art, so it's valuable, but not as valuable as the others. And then there were these art critics who started writing reviews of it after it had disappeared, saying that it was the most wonderful piece of art and that her smile was so playful. But to be honest, I don't see the hype. I don't really like it as an art piece of art. It's just fine.
Matthew, I can't let you offend Leo like that. I'm sorry, that's not on. No, but it's like that old, saying you never appreciate what you have until it's gone, isn't it? It's the same.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to look at it. Right, let's move on to the final question. And you can probably tell I've written this, and I was a bit biased about this because I really wanted to get an animation question in there because I think it's such a good kind of specialized form of art, and this is one of my favorite companies. So the final question is, when was Studio Ghibli founded? Was it A, 1975, B, 1985, or C, 1995?
Okay, it's not 95, I think.
I don't know. I'd say not 75.
He's turning 80, I saw somewhere. So he can't have founded it before the 30s. But that's not one of the options, so...
Yeah. I guess he could have founded it long before a famous film was made as well.
I would like to guess 1985 because the past few have been the middle answer, so I think it's also going to be in the middle.
Maybe they've all been answer B, and we haven't noticed.
That would be such a curveball.
Okay, A or B? Come on, what are we thinking? Ellie's with B. Shaun, what are you with?
I'd have gone for 85, I think, B, yeah.
I kind of want to say A.
Okay, so you're going with B.
Yeah.
B is the right answer.
Yay!
So
Well done,
you
guys.
finished off on a peak. Yeah, so it's 1985 and it was created by animator and director Hayao Miyazaki, who is just incredible. He's an incredible artist and just has made Studio Ghibli known for such high quality filmmaking and artistry. And I was so happy when they've won loads of awards like the Golden Bear in 2002 and awards for the international film festivals, but they were one of the first animated films to win an Academy Award in 2003 with Spirited Away.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
which is your favourite?
actually not Spirited Away. That's one of
Me
my
neither.
favourites. Yeah. I really like Princess Mononoke.
Oh my gosh, me too. I love that one.
It's so good, isn't it?
It's similar to the other one, Nausicaa.
Yeah.
I love the music in that one. It's so funny with all the Beatles.
Yes, the music in all of them, it's just like so good at coming together. And actually, I've got a fun fact. So basically, after one of the first films they did, they sold it to a Western audience. They cut it so badly and they dubbed it so wrong that Studio Ghibli put in like a rule that they'll never sell anything to a Western audience unless they have full control over dubbing and script writing for it, and nothing changes.
I once watched 5 minutes of Spirited Away and I didn't really get it and I thought it was weird, so I turned it off.
It is.
That counts. You've watched it, Matthew.
Yeah. I really want to go to Japan to go to the museum tour of it. I think that would be so much fun. Even if you don't like the films, just to
They're
see how
making a theme
it's
park
made.
or something, aren't they?
What? Right, I'll just count up the scores. Have you been keeping count, Matthew?
Of course I haven't been keeping count.
I think I've worked it out now. You've got 11 points.
Out of
what?
14.
Hey!
We win.
I think you can come second.
Well, that's not good enough.
What's the point? Now we're just not going to do the bonus round. You've
No.
ruined it, Millie.
Everyone's a winner in their hearts.
Is there a second place prize?
I will make one.
Okay,
I'll make
we have
sure-
you on recording, Millie. Hey, come on, guys. We can get second place. That's still on the podium.
It's still all to play for, guys.
So I'll just do an overview of the rules for the bonus round, and this is one of my favourites. I think this will be a lot of fun. We're going to give you 5 pictures, but we're going to send you the picture individually of a famous painting from history, along with the title of it and the artist that created it. And then you have to describe this picture to your teammates, but without using the name of the artist that created it or the title of the painting. And they'll be from all areas of history, and we might use the same artist twice. And you have got to guess the artist.
Okay.
And you'll also get 45 seconds for each painting from when they're sent. Okay, so let me know when you're ready to start and I'll begin the timer.
Okay, I can do this one, guys. Are we ready?
Okay, you're starting in 3, 2, 1.
This is the painting that was stolen that we just talked about.
Oh, the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
I was going to say Leonardo DiCaprio, and then I remembered.
That was good. That was a correct answer in just over 10 seconds. I think that might be the
we get
record we
bonus
have.
points.
You have to get them all right, I'm afraid.
Come on, we can do this. Who's next? Shaun.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, do the time
Great.
period or relate it to previous questions. We've got
Okay,
this.
okay.
if it can be related, you might as well.
I think I'm ready, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's win.
okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, he's Spanish, abstract,
Absolutely.
draws people on weird angles and stuff.
Pablo Picasso.
It is indeed. They can get the name of the painting.
Oh, is there some bonus points for that?
No, I just want to see you try.
Oh, it's a picture of
La Rev.
a romantic partner wearing a stereotypical French hat.
French hat? The
Yes.
weeping woman?
No, what sort of French hats are there? Come on, there's only one famous French hat, isn't there?
The beret.
What do you call a romantic lover? Well, I just said it actually.
Said the name.
Lover with the beret.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Ellie, I'm gonna send you one. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You can do it, Ellie.
Okay, ready? Starting in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so he's very, very famous, and he's known for being depressed and Dutch. And he painted his sky with lots of lines.
Starry Night?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll send one over to you, Vanessa.
I love this artist. Okay, so this is a very famous English painter at the National Gallery, painted loads of like ships on the sea in a nice blobby kind of pattern. And he's like,
Turner.
yes.
Hey.
Which one exactly is this? Oh, okay. This one is, it's got weather in the title and also something that goes choo choo choo.
Sunny train. Windy train.
Oh.
Yeah,
Rainy
so
train.
come on, Shaun.
It's
a really important...
I put this in a presentation I made about trains
Did
this
you?
year. About
Okay, then
Victorian
just-
trains. And
got this.
Stormy train.
Track is the train on? What's the name of that track that was really important? And it wasn't Eastern.
Western track. The important Western track.
Weather.
So it's not
I
storm, but it happens in a storm.
Lightning.
And it's also no. It's like, comes
Rain-
down from the
rain.
sky. Yeah, rain and
Rain and
something
steam.
that comes. Yes,
Rain and steam on the Western Railway.
Yes, come on, that's good enough, right? It's a very long title. And
that
they're going
was
fast.
amazing.
It sort of devolved less into describing the painting and more just giving synonyms for the words.
They weren't going to get it otherwise. Come on.
One fun fact about Turner is they've just put him on the new £20 note.
Have they? That's wonderful.
Now we move on to the final one.
Go, Ellie.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, starting now.
Okay, so he's American, and he's known for just having like a load of mess on a canvas.
Pollock.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's his first name?
Jay Jackson. Not
If you
Jason.
can get the title of this one, it's quite...
Oh, I know some of his
Like-
ones. Mattress.
No.
Oh,
It starts with the same letter. Am I allowed to say that?
what does it rhyme with?
I can't think. Burrell.
It rhymes with what?
Burrell.
Is that even a word?
Mural.
Mural. That was right.
Yes.
Oh, you got all of them right, so you do get the full 3 points. So you got 11 points plus 3, you're on 14 points. Well done.
Yeah, I thought this route was going to be a lot more difficult than it turned out, to be
It
honest.
turned out to be really easy, or maybe you guys just know a lot of artists.
We're just
I increased the amount of
genii.
time from 30 to 45 seconds, but you never used more than 20 seconds on any of them.
Yeah, you always got, most you got under like 15 seconds.
What could we say?
I'm gonna move on to the next section. And basically, every episode, we've had the privilege of having some very talented performers send in some music, some poetry, and this week we have an...
Unfortunately, this week, the run sort of ended, and we got Robin, because there wasn't anyone else.
So this week we have an incredibly talented man, an absolute joy. We have Robin Mcalister, who... What doesn't he do? He's an actor, he's a director, he's a wonderful singer, sung with big band. So Robin will be performing Never in My Wildest Dreams by Dan Auerbach. And the song is so chill and so laid back, but just so pure. I think now we should all have a listen to it.
Never in my wildest dreams would I be loving you. Never in my wildest dreams would my dreams come true. You're just too good to touch. I can't discuss it much. I get too choked up. Don't wanna make a scene. Never in my wildest dreams. Never in my wildest dreams would I roam these lands or sail across the seven seas. I'm a hard luck man. I know where my purpose is. It ain't on some pilgrimage. It's wherever my baby is. My love supreme. Never in my wildest dreams. Walk out in the cold, cold wind. I carry your laundry bin. Take my rags for a spin. Watch daytime TV. You're just too good to touch. I can't discuss it much. I get too choked up. Don't wanna make a scene, but you are never in my wildest dreams.
Go Robin!
Excelente.
I know you're gonna cut out the previous takes of it, but I'd like to retract all the jokes I made because that was really good.
Yeah, he's so talented. Robin asked what kind of thing you want for the episode, and I said, oh, can we have something quite like laid back, quite chilled? And that is that song to a T.
It's beautiful, yeah.
Oh, lovely. So now we move on to the final parts of the podcast when we talk a little bit about a charity, and we like it to be in keeping with the theme of the week, which this week is art. And this week we have a charity that Ellie brought in, and it's called the Leeds Playhouse. And would you like to tell us a bit more about it, Ellie?
So, Leeds Playhouse used to be known as West Yorkshire Playhouse, and I think that's a better name, so I'm going to call it West Yorkshire Playhouse. But basically, they do a lot of like outreach stuff, and so I used to go to art, drama, music and music stuff when I was growing up. And then I started volunteering for their outreach group for young people with learning disabilities, and we do a lot of really good art, and it's just really good, and it's mostly run on sort of private donations. One time we made a giant toucan puppet and a giant gorilla puppet, and then we put together this play around it called The Gorilla and the Toucan. I've just thought I'd give an example of like what we do, and like sometimes there's like themes. So like one time we had like a space theme, so we did like music around space and art around space, and put together a sort of piece, a drama piece incorporating all of the art that we did. They do a really great job at like making it very accessible to any kind of disability or anything like that. So yeah, I just wanted to raise awareness of that, and it's in Leeds obviously.
Yes, and we'll put links in the description, so if you want to find out more about this charity or if you want to donate some money, please do. And apart from that, there's not much else to say except thank you so much, guys, for joining us for the madness that has been recording this episode. I've had such a good time. I've laughed so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too.
Yeah! Woo! Woo! Oh, this has been really fun.
Keep art attacking.
Oh yeah, everyone can say like their favourite art tip. Don't use too much glitter. You'll regret it.
Pay someone else to create art for you. That's my favourite art tip.
Don't use too much paint.
This has been the Brightside Podcast, created by me, Millie Henson, produced by Layla Elderwish, and co-hosted by Matthew Harper and Rebecca Hughes. This podcast focuses on positivity and the wonderfully weird things our world has to offer. Thank you for listening.